talk a little bit of sports now, unless Sharief wants to talk about Legos. Sharief, you want to talk about the Saints, or you want to talk about playing pranks on people?
Well, I mean, I feel like I'm stepping on Legos. Right, every time before training camp starts, it's always like a landmine or a Lego we're stepping on when it comes to players' availabilities.
So let's talk about Saints camp as it fires up. Give me your best Michael Thomas update.
I would say he'll be back pretty quick. I'd say maybe a week. I mean, you saw the videos recently cutting and catching passes on his own while he was in LA. But I think he's pretty close. I think this is more of the Saints just being cautious and making sure they have him ready for game one, not practice one. I think he's good. I think he'll be back pretty quick, in my opinion. I'd say a week. That's just my guess. I'm going to hear from Dennis Allen and Mickey Loomis at 4:30 and 5 o'clock, and I would bet that they would say that he'd be back pretty quick.
So, is any consideration the fact that he really hadn't played in 2 years and he's had some injuries and some surgeries and maybe he's not quite the same guy? Is that a reasonable concern?
Yeah, I mean, the guy set the record in 2019, and everyone wants the guy who got paid a ton of money, who broke the record, to come back in that same shape, form, and fashion. We just don't know. If you get 80% of that, that's fantastic. But I think for the money, everyone wants Michael Thomas from 2019, but he's had a couple surgeries on that ankle. So what is he going to look like? What are those ligaments going to look like? Is he going to hold up? If he takes a big hit, is that going to affect him at all? Can he route? Can he plant? That's the things that I think a lot of people want to see once he gets to practice. He needs to practice before he plays any games, in my opinion. And you can't just go out an entire training camp with no practice and then just show up and here you are playing in week one. And maybe that's just the route they may want to take, but I would be concerned if he doesn't get back to practice within, 7-10 practices.
So here's a yes or no question for you. Just to go yes or no, and then it'll be a follow-up. Will Penning beat out Hurst at some point?
I think so. I really do think so. It may not be now.
Yeah, the question. My follow-up would be okay, when? Week 1 or week 12?
I'm going to do this the same way we did with Ryan Ramczyk and Zach Strief. Zach Strief went down with an injury, and then Ramczyk stepped in, and he never really looked back. So I could see. I'll go 6 games. I'll put the over on at 6 games. I do think they need them regardless, because you know how that offensive line has been over the last few years. Someone always goes down, whether it's Andrews Pete, could be Susan Reeves, who's ineffective, maybe James Hurst gets hurt or nicked up. Someone is always going to go down, and I think that you're going to probably see some of these guys interchangeable at some of the positions, and I can see Trevor Penning being one of those guys. He's going to play. And I think I'll put the over-under at 6 games. But James Hurst is very good, man. Not a bad guy to have at left tackle.
Yeah, look, 30 years old, 9-year vet, started 62 games in his career, started 15 last year. A capable player. But my point at the beginning of the show was, for this team to be as good as it can be, I think you'd like to have Penning play at left tackle eventually and have Hurst as your swing guy somewhere else should someone else go down. That's kind of what I thought. The other point I had that I was talking about was Adam Troutman. I think bust is a little harsh. He was a 3rd-round pick. It was the 3rd pick in the draft, but not a ton of production for 2 years. Any expectation that he could have his role increased, or they got a lot of really good receivers and he just is what he is?
Yeah, bust is, you can't put a bust label on somebody in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
So no, I think he's a serviceable tight end. That's what he needs to be. Knowing what they have now, when Mike comes back healthy, as the receiver group is going to be tremendous when he's healthy. Just got to be serviceable. And you got to remember, Taysom Hill is going to play tight end whenever he's 100% healthy from the Liz Frank injury, which is crazy to think he's not on the PUP list as of right now. So I think he's going to be the main tight end for the team in terms of production. But yeah, Adam Troutman has to be more consistent. There were some games he made some there were some flashes, and then there were other games against the Titans where he dropped, would-be touchdown passes, and that's the type of stuff that frustrates the coaching staff and the fan base. So he has to find his consistency and be a 30, 35 reception type of tight end for this team.
Alvin Kamara's out there running around, but we feel like there's some sort of discipline coming his way. You know what you got in Ingram. what is the rest of the running back situation? Are they going to continue to bring guys in, maybe sign somebody with the cap space they have, or is Tony Jones an option? What's the deal at running back?
Well, I mean, they just signed Malcolm Brown.
Yeah.
Texas great. Today they just announced that. So, and then they have Devine Zigbo, Abram Smith. They're going to bring in bodies. Now, do they keep some of those guys, or do they go after someone who has a more established name? Do they trade for like a Kenyon Drake? Because, yeah, the discipline is coming at some point in time. You don't know if it's in the beginning. You don't know how long, if it's going to be the middle of the season, but they need to find a capable back while Alvin Kamara is out. I'd be shocked if he doesn't get suspended at this point, because the court date is next Monday, August 1st. And a legal analyst talked to us yesterday on air and said they're probably trying to figure out the stuff behind behind the scenes, like paying him off and trying to plead it down and making sure maybe he doesn't get to 6 and he gets to 3 or 4 games. So, but you know how the NFL is. They don't care if it's not guilty or guilty. They're going to make their own decisions because you cannot mess with the shield. So I think 6 games wouldn't be a shocker to me, and they just need to find that capable body who can help Mark Ingram out, because Mark is a veteran now. You know, he's not going to be able to take all that pounding. So I can't wait to see what training camp brings us, honestly. You know, Hunt, I mean, does Abram Smith, an undrafted, guy out of Baylor who is a priority guy for them when they sign undrafted players, and maybe he steps up, maybe he becomes the guy that, like, oh my God, maybe they saw something. But Malcolm Brown's in now, and maybe Tony Jones, but Tony Jones didn't play well when he had a chance. It's just with Alvin out, they got to make sure they don't go on a bad losing streak like they did last year when he wasn't playing. Completely different team and offense if they stay healthy than last year, but they just got to make sure to find somebody serviceable.
The offensive storylines are pretty obvious. We kind of ran through a lot of them there. The defense just, in the nicest way possible, is kind of boring to me. Like, we just kind of know. I mean, what is interesting about the defense?
Linebacker. I mean, who is, besides DeMario and Pete Werner, who else? Who else still's in that void? Does Caden Ellis become that third linebacker, or does DeMarco Jackson, the guy they just drafted? Does Zach Bond figure in any way? I mean, this is a make or break for Zach Bond right now. So he's got to find the way to get on the field. If not, then that's it. It's done. And that's the position I look at the most. And I think the defensive line is fine. Davenport, when he comes back with the half-gone pinky finger, the amputated finger, I think he'll be good. It's the contract year for him. I think they're good up front. I mean, it's kind of like LSU. They're going to be good up front. I mean, I'm not worried about that. It's just when you get to that next level of linebackers, they really are thin there. They're probably going to play just 2 linebackers. I mean, that's just what Dennis Allen has done. But I think they need to find a third guy. And I believe that it's going to be Caden Ellis. He has shown, like, lots of flashes, and they give him a chance.
What's the latest on Will Lutz? Ready to roll?
Ready to roll. Looks good. And he's ready to get out there, and he's kicking. He's fine. And when he talked to us during minicamp and OTAs, he's booming kicks, and he says he feels finally, mentally, and physically 100%. I mean, that is another key. How many games did that cost them last year? Between that, not having Kamara, some of the other key injuries. I mean, if they don't go on a 5-game losing streak, they win 3 of those games. We're talking about a team that went 12-5, not 9-8. So, and he factored in a lot. So having Will Lutz back will be big. And I'm interested to see how long Tyrann Mathieu is going to be out, because they said he's excused from the start of training camp for a personal family matter. So interested to see how long he'll be out of training camp.
What are you looking forward to hearing tonight in the press conference?
I think it's the key thing would be Michael Thomas.
Yeah. I
mean, the Alvin Kamara thing, they don't really know. Right. What are they going to know about the Alvin Kamara thing until it's settled in court? But Michael Thomas would be my biggest question, and I'm sure that's going to be asked a million times. How long is he out? When's he coming back? I think they might have a better understanding of that now that they're about to start training camp practices tomorrow. That, and I'm sure Dennis is going to get asked a million times, are you finally ready to fill in those shoes and following Sean Payton and everything he has done for this franchise? But I would say Mike is the number one for me.
You think Dennis Allen will lean on Sean Payton at all this year?
I wouldn't be surprised if, they stay in touch. And even with Pete Carmichael, that's another big question. Will Pete Carmichael be able to handle the offense without Sean? And he did it in 2012 when he was suspended. And yes, I know it was with Drew Brees at quarterback, but I think, he's been nicknamed the mad scientist by Mark Ingram. And I think that's another big one right there. And I think he'll be just fine. I mean, even Lance Moore, having a talk with him, he thinks that the right pieces are in place from Pete Carmichael to succeed with a healthy Jameis Winston in that receiver group. So that's probably another big key thing we're going to watch throughout the entire training camp and once the season kicks off in Atlanta. So I would think that's a very big storyline, Pete Carmichael being in charge of that offense.
All right, so training camp's fired up. So y'all start kind of covering pro sports down there in New Orleans, and it'll go from now until the Pels lose in the conference final. That sound right?
Until middle of June when they win the whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be in touch each and every step of the way. Thanks, Sharief.
Anytime, hon.
Thanks so much for watching Hunt and Hill on YouTube.
Now do us a favor. Hit the red subscribe button below and throw us a like. We'll see you next time.